It's time for more 49ers Intel, happy hour style, 4:55 p.m. West Coast. Add 3 hours to that. That means it's past happy hour on the East Coast. I don't even want to know how late it is somewhere else in the world, but I'm sure many of you have the notification bell set, so it might have woken you up if you're somewhere in Asia, maybe somewhere in Europe, and you're ready for more 49ers Cowboys talk. We really got after it yesterday for an hour, and I can get into stuff deeper. That was just my initial scouting report. Now I'm going to go and take off the surface and really delve into what will make up the engine of this 49ers Cowboys matchup. A whole day's worth of thoughts have been circulating in my head. And after the full day's worth of thoughts, I just want to spit them out right now. I want to talk some 49ers Cowboys biggest NFL game of the week, Sunday Night Football, 5:20 Pacific time at Levi's Stadium. Now, what's really interesting, and I'm going to have a piece coming out on this tomorrow morning on The Athletic. So that means we're going to be able to get even further into things tomorrow morning on the Brock Purdy front. But I want to start touching on it right now because I've rewatched the game tape from the NFC divisional round against the Cowboys from January. And I realized, this is a very similar Dallas defense. Dan Quinn is still its coordinator. Obviously, you still have Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Leighton Vander Esch there in the middle. You don't have Trayvon Diggs because he's hurt, but you still have aggressive cornerbacks that like to play in a ball hawking scheme for the Cowboys. The game back in January was a complete bar fight. I mean, remember that the 49ers and the Cowboys entered that game with top 5 defenses, and it played out along the lines of what you'd expect a battle between two top 5 defenses to look like. And the Cowboys were number 1 DVOA. They're number 1 DVOA in defense again this year. So I would expect something a little bit similar. And by that, I mean the pressure is going to come. Dallas is going to be able to get to Brock Purdy in a way that's going to speed up the quarterback's process. And Brock Purdy has to be able to react and adapt to that in a positive fashion. And he absolutely did last year, but it did limit Brock Purdy's efficiency. We can look at Brock Purdy's spray chart from last season to see how he attacked the Dallas Cowboys. And to me, it's absolutely fascinating because you could tell the completions, they're all in green, and the attempts, that's all of the dots on the screen, most of them are to the right side of the hash marks. You can tell that there's a concerted effort for Brock Purdy to throw right in this game against the Cowboys. And you might ask, well, why is that? Well, the Cowboys had a lot of pressure in this game. Micah Parsons had 8 pressures. DeMarcus Lawrence had 6. Osa Odigizua had 4 pressures. I mean, they were really, really racking up the pressure. And the truth is that most of it came against the right side of the 49ers offensive line. 2 of those 3 components, by the way, are no longer 49ers. Mike McGlinchey gave up a team-high 5 pressures. Remember when he got flattened by Micah Parsons? That was one of them. Daniel Brunskill gave up 3 pressures, and Spencer Burford gave up 1. And remember, it was Burford and Daniel Brunskill splitting time at right guard last year. Brunskill is now with the Tennessee Titans. It's Burford full-time. He might be the 49ers' biggest question mark in pass protection on the right side. And Colton McKivitz has replaced Mike McGlinchey and actually been pretty good over the past 2 weeks. But a similar dynamic is probably going to happen in that Dallas is going to load up and try to bring pressure again against the right side. Quarterbacks typically in football and play callers will typically try to attack the side that the pressure is coming from for a couple reasons. One, you want your QB to see the pressure. You don't want him to be blindsided. So the Dallas Cowboys have a 31% blitz rate, which is the 7th highest in the NFL. And if they believe that the right side of the 49ers offensive line is significantly weaker than the left, as they believed last year, they're going to be bringing that heat from the right side. If Micah Parsons is ambidextrous, if he could line up and rush against any side, left tackle or right tackle, probably more of his snaps are going to come against Colton McKivitz and not against Trent Williams. So the way that this happened last year is that with that pressure coming from the right, Brock Purdy threw to the right, and he generally beat Dallas to the right. Another thing the 49ers did is most of these throws are in-breaking routes. Brock Purdy led the league in breaking route expected points at it last season, And he generated about 70 to 80% of his yards, the 214 yards against the Cowboys, on in-breaking routes. Now, what do in-breaking routes do? Well, they don't guarantee, but they set the table for a quicker release time from the quarterback, because it's faster to throw to a receiver who's breaking in, to see the receiver breaking in and get rid of the ball as he's breaking in, than it is for a receiver who's breaking out. It's closer to the quarterback. So you're trying to cut out 1/10 of a second, 2/10 of a second. You're also trying to facilitate yards after the catch, because sometimes the best defender for a defense is the sideline. Stepping on this line up here or stepping on this line up here means that it's a tackle, right? It stops the play. But if you can have an in-breaking route, if you can get receivers the ball right here and they're breaking in, well, the sideline is no longer a 12th and potentially 13th defender, and you start having to make the Cowboys, who haven't been great against the catch, you start making them tackle in the open field. So long story short, the 49ers and Brock Purdy schemed this game last year to throw into the teeth of the Cowboys' pass rush, and ultimately they were successful against that pressure. Now, and again, I'm going to go into this further tomorrow. It wasn't Brock Purdy's most efficient game, but he hasn't had a bad game yet. It was efficient, but it wasn't nearly as efficient as the other games, and that was because he was facing a really talented Dallas defense, which is number 1 in the NFL. But just as a note, just pay attention to how they're going to attack this Dallas defense. It's going to go to that right side if Dallas is rushing from that right side. And I think the heavier pressure is going to come again. Even though there's no Mike McGlinchey, even though there's no Daniel Brunskill, I think they're still going to want to test that right side now with Colton McKivitz and Spencer Burford, who did give up 1 pressure against the Cowboys last year. That's the first point of 49ers intel. Second point of 49ers intel, isn't this cool? The all-time series record between the 49ers and the Cowboys sits at 19, 19, and 1. Totally even. That one tie I like as well. Remember when I went out to Kezar Stadium and I went out to Candlestick Park last year during the week before the 49ers played the Cowboys? Those videos are still up, and those videos were some of the most fun that I've had. I put a lot of time into editing them and getting it up for you. This rivalry is about the history. The history is so damn good in the 49ers-Cowboys rivalry, and I know I've covered it extensively. I'm going to continue covering it extensively, and you should absolutely check out this piece that I wrote a couple years ago. It's called Center Stage, Reliving the 49ers-Cowboys rivalry of the 1990s, the epic 49ers-Cowboys rivalry of the 1990s. We could even call it the revolutionary Cowboys 49ers rivalry of the 1990s. I'm going to go ahead and toss this into the description right after I finish this show. For now, it's in the comment section. There's a link to it. This is the longest piece that I've ever written on The Athletic. And to me, it's still, this rivalry still withstands the test of time as far as its impact on the game. You will be amazed at all that's transpired between the 49ers and the Cowboys. And I mean, this is only the 90s. I'll go ahead and play the Kezar and the Candlestick videos, which, really go over the 1970s and the 1980s of this rivalry. But the 1990s were epic. They saw the most star-studded game in NFL history. And I don't think that you can fully appreciate what's going to happen on this field on Sunday until you read a piece like this one. All right, moving on. That's going to be in the description a little bit later. Today, Aaron Rodgers came on to the Pat McAfee show, and they asked him about Brock Purdy. And Aaron Rodgers had, I thought, a quote that essentially echoes what we've been saying on this show, on my social media, in my articles about Brock Purdy. It was really funny because it took perfect target at a lot of the so-called haters, the people who are constantly moving the goalposts for what Brock Purdy needs to do to impress them. So here it is from Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to read the first part of the quote as well so that you guys are all ready for this. People always, quote from Aaron Rodgers, people always have to add some sort of caveat, like Kyle's such a great play caller. He's got CMC and Debo and Kittle and all these guys. But at some point, I think some of that's going to die down. They're going to realize that Brock's a damn good player. That's from Aaron Rodgers himself. Obviously, a future Hall of Fame quarterback. He is directly addressing, with no incentive to do so, he's directly addressing some of these ridiculous notions that Brock Purdy is somehow being carried by his teammates, as if playing quarterback in the NFL, regardless of who's by your side, is not immensely difficult. Remember when I said, if Brock Purdy wasn't important to the 49ers, then why did they fall apart after he got hurt in the NFC Championship game? And then I said hashtag checkmate. I said that last year or this past offseason. Some people try to give me a hard time about it. Well, why don't you go ahead and find that tweet? Maybe I retweet it this afternoon. It'd be funny. Send that to them. I want them to keep that same energy, right? People were trying to say, oh, you're Brock Purdy homer or something stupid like that, when I was right the whole time. And it's not just me. It's I think all the people who watch this show, or 95% of you, are reasonable about this. And the reason I bring it back up is we had so many toxic, damaging narratives that I think might have hurt some people's enjoyment of consuming the game and watching football. And the point of so much of this is to escape from reality, enjoy the game of football in a productive manner, to appreciate what a group of men is doing while they're fighting up against another group of men, right? I mean, this is competitive at the core of competitiveness. This is as real as it gets in the NFL. The point is to develop an appreciation, to enjoy the flow of the game, and to take some of these amazing stories, like the Brock Purdy story, Mr. Irrelevant into number one efficiency in the NFL, and actually sit back and be like, wow, this is really cool. Why don't we give it the credit that it deserves? And there was so much talk trying to discredit that, and so much, shooting the messenger too. The people that tried to fairly and objectively cover it would get shouted down. So now that we see the truth actually unfolding on the football field, and we see this amazing efficiency from Brock Purdy, and we see that, yes, he does deserve a lot of credit. Yes, it is a team sport. That's part of the celebration of football. Everybody else deserves a lot of credit. Yeah, now we get to sit back and take a victory lap. Now we get to sit back and say, yes, we were right about this again. And that's where Aaron Rodgers comes in. I think that's why his comment about Brock Purdy is so poignant, because these men that play this sport at a really high level, they recognize toxic discourse as well. And it's not good for anybody. It doesn't benefit anybody. They recognize that toxic discourse exists as well. And when they have a chance to set it straight, they'll set it straight. And I think that's why it's so important that Aaron Rodgers said something that exactly matches what we've been saying about Brock Purdy. There's another ridiculous theory going around on the internet. And now, this is, again, it doesn't all have to be for drama, right? But I guess some people want this to be dramatic. There's a theory that Dallas traded for Trey Lance just so they could pick up some kind of valuable intelligence on how the 49ers operate, and so they could use that to beat the 49ers. If this were true, I just have to say that every single NFL team would be trying to poach away its rivals' third-string quarterbacks every year. Trey Lance is a third-string quarterback. He lost a battle to Sam Darnold. He long ago was usurped by Brock Purdy on the depth chart. Nothing more, nothing less. The 49ers got a fourth-round pick for a third-string quarterback. That's the way that you have to operate from a business standpoint. And Dallas, well, they just wanted to take a flyer on somebody to see, hey, maybe this X number 3 overall pick, maybe he still has a little bit left in the tank. Maybe he needs a change of scenery. Let's try to insulate our quarterback room with him. That's all that there was. There wasn't some nefarious plan to try to subvert the 49ers and learn their playbook. I mentioned earlier, if that was the case, then Anthony Brown, a 49ers cornerback who spent the past 7 seasons with the Cowboys, he'd be the most valuable person in the 49ers building right now, because he knows more about the Cowboys than Trey Lance knows about the 49ers. But this league, players change teams every single season, every single month, every single week. It's happening. Players with experience elsewhere will sign on to another team. Don't think that that's how knowledge is collected in the NFL. The knowledge is collected through playing people and through watching tape of everybody else. So the ridiculous Trey Lance intel theory, I hope that's only one that was on the front of people's minds for about 20 minutes today. wanted to go over it for some time. Why don't we talk about some more meaty football content? Dallas in cover one. The Cowboys love playing cover one. They have played and lined up in cover one 63% of the time this year, which is the highest rate in the NFL. A lot of people ask me, oh, well, is George Kittle going to be more involved in this game? Is Deebo Samuel going to be more involved? Brandon Ayuk, whatever. They're all always involved. I mean, even if you're not getting the ball, you're still involved. You're still part of the offensive operation. It's not just the one-man show. So I always try to correct the wording of those questions. But perhaps a better way to ask them would be, is George Kittle going to be the first read or the second read more often this week than he was over the past few weeks? And I think that he really might be this week. Remember the last time the 49ers played the Cowboys? Kittle led the way for the 49ers with 5 catches for 95 yards. And he also had a drawn holding call right in front of Christian McCaffrey's touchdown before Jerry Rice got the ball for that touchdown that really set the 49ers up. It was the ultimate game-winning touchdown. And I think the reason that George was targeted so much last year was because of the way that the Cowboys are playing defense. The defense is going to dictate how you attack it, right? And Dallas plays a lot of cover one. I could explain what cover one is. That means that you bring one of the 2 safeties down into the box. Use cover one to try to stop a team that's running a lot. So you bring one of the safeties down into the box. That safety gives you an extra number against the run game. The second safety remains back, and then he's going to rove. We'll get back to that second safety in a bit. The rest of the defensive backs and the linebackers are all in man coverage in cover one. So you got a lot of one-on-ones in man coverage with that second roving high safety able to, well, it just depends on what the exact play call is, but sometimes he can freelance, sometimes he can flow, but he fills in the gaps, right, depending on where they're needed based on what the offense runs. The gist of cover one is that you got a whole lot of man coverage, and I think that it's very good for players like George Kittle, who's tough to man up given his size, speed combination. You've got opportunities for him. So it was a big, big chance for George Kittle against the Dallas Cowboys last season. He responded, 5 targets, 5 catches, 91 yards. And the fact that Dallas is still under Dan Quinn, their defensive coordinator, the fact that they still have a similar defensive front, similar front seven, similar secondary. I know new names there. They have Stephon Gilmore now. I know Trayvon Diggs is hurt. But the personnel is still lined up for Dallas to want to run cover one. And for a half against the 49ers last year, it worked well. They were able to shut down the run for about a half last year. It was, I think, only 2.5 yards per carry at the break for the 49ers. Something like 29 yards on 11 carries. In the second half, the 49ers picked up nearly 90 yards on 4.1 per carry. So they made the adjustments, and part of that adjustment list was getting George Kittle really, really involved in the second half. And it's funny, you can go back to the article I wrote after the 49ers beat the Cowboys last year. There he is. Remember the bobbling catch? I called it the 9-yard catch. It wasn't yak last year. It was YDC, yards during the catch. Kittle got his hands on the football at like the 34 and didn't finish the catch until the 43. A full 9 yards for George Kittle there near the 49ers logo. And that was part of the big 91-yard drive that helped the 49ers get firm control on what was a heavyweight battle against the Cardinals. So that all relates to cover one, how the 49ers are going to attack the Cowboys. And those of you who do wonder on a week-to-week basis who's going to be the featured target, I know Brandon Ayuk had 6 catches for $148 last week. I know Christian McCaffrey is always the safety valve. Deebo Samuel wasn't a big featured player last week. I think this week, yes, you're going to get more Samuel, maybe some more Samuel out of the backfield. But what you really might get a heavy dose of is George Kittle working against the Dallas cover one. Check this out. The 49ers offense has been historically efficient. We got new superlatives coming out every single day. This is Ben Baldwin sent me this morning. I woke up and this was in my inbox from Ben Baldwin, who's so good with these numbers. Series conversion rate. That means a series is any time that you have a new set of downs, 1st and 10. How many times do you pick up a new set of downs? So do you pick up a new first down or do you score a touchdown? It's a good way to measure offensive consistency in the context of complementary football because it's not just about scoring touchdowns really quickly. It's also about moving the chains, giving your defense some rest, playing this as a team sport. So the 49ers had a 97% series conversion rate against Arizona. They only failed to convert one series all game against the Cardinals, which is wildly impressive. So we could look at their season-long series conversion rate now, and they are at 82.2%. This is since 1999. The 49ers have the best series conversion rate since 1999. Unfortunately, the data is not currently available back to the 94 49ers under Mike Shanahan or the 89 49ers with Mike Holmgren and Bill Walsh with Joe Montana. But we do have data that goes back to 99, which encapsulates the entire Patriots dynasty. And the top team in the Patriots dynasty was the 07 Patriots, right? At least the top offense. The 07 Patriots, 81.4%. The 49ers are better than that right now at 82.2%. You've got other MVP caliber teams here like Lamar Jackson's 2019 Baltimore Ravens, 80.1%. Aaron Rodgers, 2020 Green Bay Packers, he was the MVP that year, 80.9%. The 2021 Kansas City Chiefs under Tua Tagovailoa, 80.3%. Under Patrick Mahomes, 80.3%. The 2023 Miami Dolphins under Tua Tagovailoa, who have put up 70 points in a game, 80.2%. So you could see the quarterbacks that helm these offenses are, I think, favored to win the MVP out of the guys that are listed in the top 10. I mean, Drew Brees, 2011, New Orleans Saints. That was the 2011 team that the 49ers ended up beating in the NFC wildcard game. So this 2023 San Francisco team under Brock Purdy has a higher series conversion rate than anybody since 1999, including Tom Brady's 2007 Patriots. But, you know, despite this, the 49ers still have work to do. Look at this. This is pass protection, another one of these XY charts. And as you can tell, the 49ers logo on this one is not in the top right where you want it to be. And this, you know, to me, underscores the impressiveness of what Brock Purdy is doing even more. So the XY axis, the dotted lines are average. Bottom X axis, that's the PFF grade. Y axis is ESPN's pass block win rate. The 49ers are below average in terms of PFF grade, and they are about average in terms of ESPN's pass block win rate. That puts them on the left. It puts them to the left and below much of the cluster here on the right. And I would say that the data indicates through 4 games that the 49ers have at least a slightly below average resume along the pass protection aspect of the offensive line. And, you know, you just have to sit back and say, wow, Brock Purdy is putting up phenomenal efficiency in the quarterback charts. He's over here on the top right, despite not having a great offensive line. I think you can objectively say the 49ers don't have a great offensive line. How good exactly will they be by the end of this season? Well, I think they're moving in the right direction. I think that this dot, if the 49ers continue delivering performances like they did it against the Arizona Cardinals, only 3 total pressures allowed, they'll move further to the right. They'll move further up. But the Cardinals were one of the weaker fronts that they're going to face all season. And this Dallas front this next week is going to be really damn good. Again, Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Dante Fowler Jr. is on this team. So if the 49ers can maintain efficiency that they showed last week as far as pass blocking up front, even against this Dallas front, all power to them. They're probably for real along the offensive line. But I would expect some struggles because works in progress in NFL do take a while to work on. And that's okay because the 49ers have other aspects of their football team that are playing very well, such as the 49ers pass rush. I'm going to show you some tape, but first I want to show you the graphic here. This is a graphic of how close the 49ers defensive linemen are on average to opposing quarterbacks, even if they may not have a record tally of sacks so far. GPS data used by NFL Next Gen Stats shows that Javon Hargrave was 3.56 yards away on average from Joshua Dobbs this past weekend. Bosa was 3.59 yards. Drake Jackson, 3.65. All of those numbers are significantly lower. In the case of Hargrave, a yard lower than the league average distance from QBs, 4.56 yards per pass rush. So What does this mean? Well, take a look at this. Let's watch some tape. This is courtesy Jordan Elliott. Put this up online. Look at Eric Armstead on the inside. Look at him just absolutely bury the guard. And he's on top of Joshua Dobbs in about 1.2 seconds. The release times here in the NFL are so quick. 1.2 is an exaggeration for me in terms of the pass rush time, but we can count this. 1,000, 2, 1,000. I mean, he's there in less than 2.5 seconds. And a 2.5 second release time is fast. And if you could destroy the guard this quickly and watch everybody else do good work pushing the line back into Joshua Dobbs, if you can do that, you are absolutely in business when it comes to this, and that is constricting the pocket. So if other teams are playing quick release, you're probably not going to have a great chance to sack the quarterback. But you will have a chance to do what you see right here, and that is completely flatten the right guard and disrupt the throwing lane and hurry the throw in such a way that creates an incompletion. Pass rush creates offensive inefficiency, and I just wanted to point that out. All right, so we went through all this 49er stuff. We're going to have a little bit more of it later. I'm going to go back to one of yesterday's keys. The key is to play the game downhill if you are the 49ers. Because Dallas, I mean, that's a team that can pin its ears back. That's a team that can get after quarterbacks. But if you can run, play the game downhill, prevent Dallas from running, play your game downhill, these are two good pass rushes, I think you can be successful if you're the 49ers. Everybody like the video, sub to the channel. 49ers Intel is just the first of multiple evening videos that we're going to do today. So we'll talk to you soon. Enjoy the rest of your happy hour.